In March 1991, a martial artist with super fast hands and a strong jawline that looked like it could cut glass burst onto movie screens in The Perfect Weapon. Jeff Speakman wasn't just another action star wannabe. Paramount Pictures had bet big money on him, signing him to a deal for 4 pictures that had never been done before and actually writing a movie just for him, something the studio had never done before. Critics praised his real Kenpo karate. Fans lined up at theaters. Everything pointed to Speakman becoming the next Steven Seagal or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Then, almost overnight, he disappeared from Hollywood's A-list. What happened? The answer involves a dead mentor, a studio power struggle, and the action blockbuster that should have made Speakman a superstar, but instead launched Keanu Reeves into the stratosphere. This is the story of how one executive's decision cost Jeff Speakman the career of a lifetime. Jeff Speakman's journey to Hollywood started about as far from the movie business as you can get. Born in Chicago in 1958, he was an All-American springboard diver in high school, breaking records in his district and conference without ever having a coach. Natural athleticism ran through his veins, but it was a television show that changed everything. Watching David Carradine in Kung Fu ignited something in young Speakman, a fascination with martial arts that would take over his life. He started studying Goju Ryu, an Okinawan martial art, working his way to a black belt while working his way through Missouri Southern State College. 6 years it took him to earn that degree in psychology, paying every penny himself so he'd finish without debt. When his instructor saw Speakman's dedication, he gave him some life-changing advice. If you're serious about making martial arts your life, you need to find Ed Parker in California. Ed Parker, the father of American Kenpo, Elvis Presley's personal bodyguard, the man who introduced Bruce Lee to American audiences. So, in 1983, Speakman did something crazy. He sold his car, loaded up a moving van, and drove to California with barely enough money to survive. He arrived in Los Angeles just as Ed Parker's famous international karate championships were happening in Long Beach. Fate, it seemed, had perfect timing. Ed Parker took Speakman as a personal student, and for 3.5 years, the young martial artist soaked up everything the Grandmaster could teach. Parker had a unique teaching method. He never gave complete answers. He'd give Speakman half an answer and make him figure out the rest himself, forcing his student to think, to discover, to become more than just a technician executing moves. This wasn't just about kicks and punches. This was about creating a thinking warrior. By 1988, Speakman had earned his 4th-degree black belt directly from Parker and was teaching at a West LA dojo, never imagining Hollywood was watching. But Speakman had also been studying something else for 5 years, acting. He'd been taking classes at an acting workshop in Burbank called the Creative Actors Workshop, working on his craft, preparing for an opportunity he didn't even know was coming. One of his instructors happened to be a writer and producer who just finished working on Jean-Claude Van Damme's second movie, Kickboxer. During casual conversation, Speakman mentioned his martial arts background. The instructor's eyes lit up. He came down to watch Speakman teach one night at the West LA school, and what he saw blew his mind. This wasn't the typical karate you'd seen in 1,000 dojo scenes. American Kenpo was fast, brutal, explosive, hands moving like machine guns, striking from angles opponents never saw coming. The instructor immediately called Mark D. Sal, the producer and director behind Van Damme's Bloodsport and Kickboxer, basically begging him to come see this guy and this unique martial art. D. Sal kept putting him off. Yeah, I'll come check it out. But the instructor wouldn't let it go, pushing and pursuing until finally D. Sal showed up at the dojo. He watched Speakman demonstrate, and right there everything changed. This was 1990. And the action movie landscape was exploding. Steven Seagal had just dominated with Above the Law, Hard to Kill, and Marked for Death. Van Damme was climbing the Hollywood ranks with Bloodsport, Kickboxer, and Lionheart. Studios were desperate to find the next martial arts sensation, and Paramount Pictures was one of the biggest studios in the world. D. Sal brought Speakman to meet the studio brass. They signed him to a 4-picture deal on the spot. Then they did something that had literally never happened before at Paramount. They commissioned a script to be written specifically for Jeff Speakman, built entirely around showcasing American Kenpo. The movie would be called The Perfect Weapon. Ed Parker was super excited. His student was about to become a movie star, and together they'd showcase Kenpo to the world. Paramount's plan was brilliant. Send the master and student around the globe to promote the film using their real-life relationship to sell the movie's authenticity. Production began in the summer of 1990 and Ed Parker was there. Every single day. For in the morning for a night shoot, Parker was standing next to Speakman coaching, critiquing, helping choreograph every fight scene. They worked together like a symphony, the master fine-tuning his student's performance. The fight choreography was unlike anything Hollywood had seen from American martial arts. Realistic, brutal, with Speakman actually taking hits and going down, then incorporating the damage into his attacks. Most action stars of that era were basically invincible supermen. Speakman made it real. Filming wrapped at the very end of November 1990. Everyone was exhausted but thrilled. They had something special. Ed Parker was proud beyond measure. He told colleagues that Jeff Speakman was the future of Kenpo, the one who would carry the art forward into the mainstream. But Parker never got to see what they'd created. On December 15, 1990, just 3 weeks after filming concluded, Ed Parker suffered a massive heart attack after arriving at Honolulu International Airport. He was 59 years old. He died en route to the hospital. The martial arts world went into mourning. For Speakman, the loss was devastating. This wasn't just his teacher. This was his mentor, his guide, the man he'd sold everything to study under. They'd spent nearly every day together for years. And during those final months on set, they'd created something together that was supposed to be the beginning of Speakman's journey. Now Parker was gone. Black Belt magazine captured the tragic irony perfectly. In their March issue, one page featured an article Ed Parker had written about Jeff Speakman. On the facing page was Parker's obituary. In that final article, Parker had written something Speakman would never forget. I never gave Jeff complete answers to his questions. I always gave him half answers and made him figure out the rest for himself. Even in death, the master was still teaching. The Perfect Weapon was dedicated to Ed Parker and the spirit of Kenpo. It would have to carry on without him. March 15, 1991, The Perfect Weapon hit theaters. Opening weekend, it debuted at number 6 at the box office, pulling in nearly $4 million. For a martial arts film from a complete unknown, those were solid numbers. It went on to gross over $14 million domestically, a genuine success. Critics who usually dismissed martial arts flicks actually paid attention this time. The fight choreography was praised as some of the most authentic ever put to film. Fans loved that Speakman's character actually got hurt, that fights felt dangerous and real. Here's the crazy part. When Speakman first saw the rough cut, he noticed the fight scenes were edited wrong, cutting away too quickly, losing the flow of the choreography. So Paramount let him, a first-time actor, come into the editing room and recut his own fight scenes. He'd never been in an editing room before, but he learned fast and made the fights longer, more impactful. That big dojo fight scene where Speakman takes on multiple attackers, 2.5 days of filming, 12 hours each day, 150 takes. Speakman made sure every second showed up on screen. The film was right there, poised to launch him into action stardom alongside Seagal and Van Damme. Paramount had 3 more movies lined up in his contract. Everything was perfect, except for one problem nobody saw coming. Right as The Perfect Weapon released, Paramount Pictures lost its CEO. An interim chief executive stepped in to run the studio temporarily. And that's when Jeff Speakman's dream started crumbling. Here's how Hollywood works. When a new executive takes over a studio, they don't want to spend resources making stars out of actors the previous regime discovered. If those actors succeed, the old guard gets the credit. The new boss gets nothing. So, they kill those projects and develop their own stars instead. Speakman was caught in that political meat grinder. The new interim CEO had another problem too. Mark D. Sal, who directed The Perfect Weapon and held the rights to the Speakman deal. Paramount wanted D. Sal gone, but would have to pay him a fortune to walk away. Meanwhile, Paramount had sent Speakman and his team a script for his second film. The script was fantastic, a high-concept thriller about a cop battling a terrorist who's planted a bomb on a bus. If the bus drops below 50 miles per hour, boom, everyone dies. Paramount loved the concept so much they spent $250,000 hiring writers to rewrite it specifically as a Jeff Speakman vehicle. The rewrites were tailored to his strengths. The bus would have to stop at certain points. Speakman would get off to fight bad guys in explosive hand-to-hand combat sequences showcasing his kenpo skills, then get back on the bus. They were building the perfect action movie around him, just like they'd done with The Perfect Weapon. Speakman and his team were engaged in the development, working closely with the writers. This was it, the movie that would cement his stardom. Then, in the middle of active development, the interim CEO made a decision that would haunt Speakman for the rest of his life. Without telling Speakman, his agents, or his legal team, the interim CEO put the script into turnaround. For those who don't speak Hollywood, turnaround means the studio is basically putting a script up for sale to other studios. Paramount had invested $250,000 developing it so they'd offer it to competitors for the same price. The next day, Speakman's agents found out what happened and lost their minds. Phone calls erupted across Hollywood. Speakman's legal team, his agents, everyone was screaming at Paramount, "What the hell are you doing? This is Speakman's movie. We picked it. You picked it. You gave it to us, and you've already spent $250,000 making it a Jeff Speakman movie." The interim CEO realized he'd screwed up. "Oh, sorry, I messed up. Let me go get it back." He called 20th Century Fox, who'd already snapped up the script, begging them to sell it back. Fox refused. They knew they had something special and they weren't letting go. That script, the one that was supposed to be Jeff Speakman's second Paramount film, the one with all those kenpo fight scenes written in, eventually came out in 1994. It was called Speed. It starred Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. It made $350 million globally, and turned both actors into massive superstars. Speed launched Keanu Reeves into the stratosphere. Within a few years, he'd star in The Matrix and had become one of the biggest action stars on the planet. In an interview years later, Speakman was brutally honest about what losing Speed cost him. "It was the movie that made Keanu Reeves a star. We were rewriting it so that the bus would stop and Speakman would have to get off the bus and fight guys and get back on the bus. We lost it. And consequently, there went my career." Just like that, Speakman's second Paramount film evaporated. The studio's relationship with D-Sal deteriorated. The entire four-picture deal fell apart. Speakman was left stranded watching the role that should have been his make someone else a household name. But the damage went deeper than just losing one movie. In Hollywood, momentum is everything. You have to strike while you're hot. Keep the films coming. Stay in the public eye. Speakman's next film, Street Night, didn't arrive until 1993, 2 full years after The Perfect Weapon. In the movie business, 2 years might as well be a lifetime. During that gap, dozens of similar action films flooded the market. Van Damme released multiple movies. Seagal was everywhere. The moment had passed and Street Night had its own problems. It was produced by Cannon Films, the legendary B-movie studio that was literally collapsing. The film had the dubious distinction of being one of Cannon's final productions before the company went belly up. Street Night got a limited theatrical release in the US and went straight to video in the UK. The writing was on the wall. Jeff Speakman, the martial artist Paramount had positioned as their next big action star, was being relegated to the direct-to-video wasteland. The films that followed The Expert in 1995, Deadly Outbreak in 1996, and a string of others through the late 90s and early 2000s, all went straight to video. Some were entertaining, showcasing Speakman's incredible fighting skills and proving he could actually act circles around contemporaries like Seagal, but nobody saw them. The moment had been lost, and Speakman knew it. He'd had a once-in-a-lifetime shot at superstardom, and corporate politics had destroyed it before it even began. For most people, that kind of career disappointment would be crushing. Watching someone else become a megastar in the role that was written for you, that's the stuff of Hollywood nightmares. But Speakman had learned something from Ed Parker during those 3.5 years as his personal student. Martial arts isn't just about fighting. It's about discipline, adaptation, perseverance. Parker had always said he hoped no one would traditionalize American Kenpo after he died. He wanted the art to evolve, to change, to grow. So Speakman focused on what he could control. He founded American Kenpo Karate Systems, building an international organization that eventually grew to more than 50 schools. He continued training, testing for every belt rank in front of senior masters, never taking shortcuts. He was inducted into the Black Belt Hall of Fame in 1993 as Instructor of the Year. In 2009, he received the Silver Life Achievement Award from the Masters Hall of Fame. He held training camps worldwide, teaching thousands of students. Hollywood might not have worked out, but Ed Parker's legacy was in good hands. Then in 2013, 22 years after The Perfect Weapon made him briefly famous, Jeff Speakman faced the fight of his life. And this time, it had nothing to do with movies or martial arts. He was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. Doctors told him it was basically a coin flip whether he'd survive. He just signed on for a role in The Expendables 3, finally getting a chance to share the screen with the action stars who become legends while his career languished in direct-to-video purgatory. Now he might not live to film it. The treatment was brutal: chemotherapy, radiation, 18 inches of feeding tubes inserted directly into his stomach. Speakman lost 80 pounds, 32 kilograms of muscle and body weight just melting off his frame. The radiation destroyed his saliva glands, causing thick mucus that made him gag and vomit constantly. There were moments when he couldn't take any more, when he broke down and told the doctors he wanted to stop treatment, but his oncologist gave him the same kind of no-nonsense talk Ed Parker might have given. You can't quit now. If you stop, you can't come back and finish later. You're fit enough to get through this. You have to fight. So, Speakman fought. He used every ounce of discipline and mental toughness that decades of martial arts had built in him, and he endured hell. In 2014, doctors declared him cancer-free. He'd beaten stage 4 throat cancer through sheer will and the refusal to quit that martial arts had ingrained in his soul. Most people would have taken the rest of their lives easy after surviving something like that. Speakman did the opposite. Going through cancer, coming that close to death, gave him clarity. He stopped worrying about what other people thought, stopped playing politics, stopped drinking the Kool-Aid, as he put it. He'd faced death and won. Now he was going to honor Ed Parker's memory the right way. He created Kenpo 5.0, a revolutionary evolution of American Kenpo that integrated ground fighting techniques into the traditional system. This was exactly what Parker had wanted. Don't traditionalize the art, evolve it for modern self-defense needs. Speakman built Kenpo 5.0 into a worldwide phenomenon with franchise schools in 18 countries. He tested and earned his way to 9th degree black belt. Then in 2022, he was promoted to 10th degree, the same rank Ed Parker held when he died. Speakman had become what his mentor predicted, the future of Kenpo. He runs training camps internationally, teaching thousands of martial artists the evolved system he created. His Las Vegas headquarters serves as the hub for a global organization that's kept American Kenpo alive and growing decades after Ed Parker's death. And here's what's interesting. Speakman doesn't seem bitter about Hollywood. He doesn't spend interviews complaining about what could have been or cursing the interim CEO who torpedoed his career by putting speed into turnaround. He's philosophical about it. Surviving cancer put everything in perspective. When you've been that close to death, when doctors tell you it's a coin flip whether you'll see next year, losing a movie role doesn't seem like the tragedy it once did. In interviews, Speakman talks about how short life is, how the main cause of death is birth, how none of us have much time here. He encourages martial artists, encourages everyone not to make life about money, possessions, or social media clicks. It has been, is now, and forever will be the content of your character that you put on full display in how you interact with other people to make the world a better place, and then you're dead. Those aren't the words of someone bitter about a lost Hollywood career. Those are the words of someone who found their true purpose.